In the summer of 1994, 4 teens entered an abandoned building in Gravesend, Brooklyn. It was the last time they would be seen alive. With few clues and no witnesses, the case went cold. But for Anthony Brewer, the brother of one of the victims, the search never stopped. In 2024, he acquired evidence from the police that contained DNA samples that didn't match the teens. That discovery put his life and the life of his family in grave danger. Goosebumps, The Vanishing. All episodes now available on Disney Plus and Hulu on disneyplus.disney.com. Rated TV 14 LB.
A bucket list is cool, but what about a fuck it list? I think that might be just as important, just so you're understanding what your trajectory is in life and what it is you're seeking and what you're doing about it. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up you. I'm your host, Isaiah. And before we get started, I want to shout out our new patron, Amy. Amy, thank you for the love. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. And welcome. Take up space. There's enough room. Shout out to all my subscribers, Flight Club and the Patreon subscribers. You guys are dope. You guys are awesome. And I just always appreciate coming back to the realization that, there are people who look forward to hearing what I got to say. And they are eager to contribute as well. So, Amy, welcome. I appreciate you. So today, guys, it's funny. I was thinking about something all this week. And then it really came to me in my sleep, and it was the whole concept of a bucket list, but also a fuck it list, and also a want it list. I think, going through life, the concept of a bucket list is there. We say it in passing or in jest, right? Oh yeah, that's on my bucket list. And it's like, okay, what does that bucket list look like? Have you ever done like an intentional bucket list? I think the last time I did a bucket list was, years, probably before I went into college or while I was in college. And I don't even know where that list is, but I haven't done one since. And I think I was really thinking about it recently just because, a lot of things have just been happening. I had another book signing at Barnes & Noble, and one of my buddies was there, and he was like, how does it feel to be signing your book? I was like, I don't know. It just feels like I'm signing a book. I was like, I don't think it hit me yet. And it still hasn't, and, it's something to think about and process. And it's not that I'm even downplaying what I do, but I think sometimes we don't give it its full, attention. And you hear two different narratives, right? In terms of, never getting comfortable, always being willing to push to get to the next thing. And then you have this idea that, nothing truly will ever be enough. So if you don't appreciate what you do and have, then you're always going to feel empty. You're always going to feel empty. And I sold out that day, right? Like I sold out that day, which is so dope. And it still hasn't hit me. And there's something to be said about that. And I don't know what it is yet, but there's definitely something behind that, right? How crazy it is to do things that you never imagined doing. Growing up, being a writer was never a part of the plan. my plan, but obviously life had different plans for me. And if I look back, writing was one of the things that I've always kind of did in my own privacy. You know what I'm saying? And now here we are. It's crazy. It's really cool too. And it's something to really appreciate. Your younger self is always leaving you clues in terms of who you are and what's significant about you and what's important to you. And it's just a matter of you kind of, one, being brave enough to entertain it and explore it, but also two, appreciating that, right? Recognizing, oh, this is something that's, unique and potentially can be something important for me. Now, being a mental health coach, the funny thing is, as I always said, wherever life would take me at some point, I would consider counseling, being a therapist of some sort. I always kind of said that, and I always kind of knew. And it was in the back of my mind, and I had it in my head that around this time that would start to come to fruition. And it was I wasn't on the trajectory for it at all, but I always kind of knew in the back of my head as well that this is something, this is going to be a part of my life path. And the knowingness of that without forcing it is kind of awesome too. Like I said, life is always leaving clues and you just have to pay attention. And I'm saying all this because, I challenge you to ask yourself, what's on my bucket list? What's on my wanted list, right? And then what's on my fuck it list, right? Make 3 lists. Your bucket list is the goals, the things that are very important to you, right? That potentially could leave a legacy or, memorable for you. Then you have your wanted list. Your wants change throughout life. Your bucket list may even change throughout life, but I think your wanted list is more of I'd say a little bit more superficial of a list. Your wanted list is like your desires, these things that seem appealing and enticing to you in the moment, but they may not stick. And that's okay. That is okay. And then your fuck it list is just things that you don't really desire to have, shitty relationships, romantic, poor friendships, right? You don't want to have, unsupportive, unhealthy friendships, just ambiguous relationships, right? Fuck it list. No. Fuck it list could also be, I don't want to continuously doubt myself. Like, your fucking list is kind of like the things that I will not tolerate, and I stand firm on that. Okay. The non-tolerables is your fucking list. And I think when you do that, it might help you to figure out life a little bit. And granted, I'm no expert because life is, it's relative to the person. But it was something that I was thinking about. And, even when you quote unquote have success, you may still overlook that success because you are fixated on what success is supposed to look like based on what society tells you or what your parents have told you or what your siblings have and, what your friends have and everything. But it's like, if you kind of explore what are the things you want to achieve and accomplish in life or want to do or want to have and don't want to have, it might give you some insight. It might make life a little bit more manageable. It might make life a little bit more enjoyable because it's like, oh, this is important to me. These people are important to me. There are certain big goals I have in life that are like my big ones. And they're important not just because they're something that I want to do, but they're also important because of what that can create otherwise. You know what I'm saying? There's a goal beyond the goal itself. And I think that's even cool too, exploring your why. Taking time to figure out your why is super helpful. And one of the most damaging things you can do is just say, well, I want to be happy. Well, whose definition of happiness are you living up to? Is it yours? What does happiness actually look and sound like? You can visualize happiness. What is that? What is that? And not just in a grand scheme, what does happiness look like for you on a day-to-day basis? And then going even further, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to create happiness in your life? Are you self-sabotaging? Because, happiness isn't going to come from that. It's not. What toxic patterns do you keep falling into? That may be a hindrance on your happiness. Right? Write out your list. Write out your bucket list. Write out your wanted list, WANTIT, and then write out your fuck it list. Okay? Your fuck it list should definitely consist of things that hold you accountable, not just what other people should be or shouldn't be doing. Because that's important. I always stress accountability because I can promise you. I always stress accountability because the more accountable you are for just what you're in control of, what you're aware of, the more peaceful life gets. The more peaceful life gets. And the reason why it becomes more peaceful is simply because, well, you're steering. You're steering the course, and you pivot when necessary. You do all the things that are required to make sure that you are good and to make sure that things are at least transpiring in such a way that you feel complete. Right? Accountability is a beautiful thing because you stop waiting for other people to make you quote unquote happy. You stop waiting for other people to give you permission to do things, right? You just kind of do it. You do it and you figure it out. Okay? And you become a little bit more discerning about what it is that you want, who it is that you want to have along your journey of wants and needs and aspirations, right? Accountability is an amazing thing because it also, and this is the part I think that people don't like, when you hold yourself accountable, if things don't work out, it's still you. It's still you. A lot of times there's this underlying desire, I guess, to make other people the reason why we don't succeed, right? Oh, my insert whoever, oh, they didn't do this thing, so therefore this didn't happen. Or, my parents didn't love me enough, so now I can't love properly. It's like, no. My parents didn't show up in the ways that I needed. All right, cool. Now I'm going to figure out how to do it for myself. That's accountability. That's also ownership. And that is a big game changer. Right? Because you then start looking, all right, cool. Maybe they didn't have the tools. Not to say it's okay or it's not. It just is. What I needed, I didn't receive. What am I doing about it? Especially if I'm a grown person now. How am I changing that narrative for myself and for others in my relationships? How am I doing things differently to have a different outcome? And again, I think the reason why most people dodge accountability is simply because, well, you're responsible for when things kind of get messy. And that's great. Like, yes, sometimes you got to recognize healthy accountability versus just always blaming yourself for everything. But you have to also be willing to step in the ring, even when other people don't show up. It's like, all right, cool. I can still show up. And the more you show up for yourself, right? The more you show up for yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more you build a better environment. If there's one thing I don't do, is I've just learned to not wait on other people. I really don't. Like, yeah, I'll leave room, but I've realized, everybody's kind of operating on their own timetable. And what's important to me, what's priority to me, what I deem as a priority, even myself, other people may not see it that way. They may not see what I do, what I need, who I am as a priority in their lives. Okay, cool. Well, I see myself as a priority, so I'm going to do something about that. And it's happened many of times, waiting on other people to show up and then they don't. In any little way, it doesn't matter. Even if you just need like a person to talk to, right? And they just don't show up. Yeah, that shit sucks. That sucks. Or waiting for somebody in a conversation to ask how you are and to actively listen and they don't quote unquote show up. What can you take from that? There's information there, right? But even in a bigger scheme, like the grander scheme, waiting for people to show up all the time, it always kind of puts a responsibility on them. Oh yeah, this person didn't show up, so this didn't happen. It's like, yeah, this person didn't show up and I'm going to figure out how to do what I got to do. Yeah, it sucks that they weren't present. That really is shitty. But you know what? I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. That is a necessary quality to have in life. Be willing to figure it out. And figuring it out doesn't mean you have to do it on your own. Figuring it out just means that the person that you were expecting to be present is not a participant and is not in attendance. So now you have to pivot. You have to pivot. What do you think is going to make you the happiest in life? What does that look like? And what decisions are you holding off on making? It could be anything, right? Whatever that thought is in your head right now, that, the decision that you're afraid to make because you're afraid that you might disappoint somebody or that you might fail. All these things matter, right? And I was just thinking about the concept of a bucket list because, I hear it all the time, but I never do it. They always say live in the present moment, but it's like, all right, cool. Well, what about some things that I want to do later? Or want to have later or don't want to have later. The bucket list is important. The bucket list is probably even more important. And again, not being willing to hold yourself accountable should definitely be on that bucket list, right? There's no room for a lack of accountability. So just think about that, y'all. Like I said, I've been thinking about it this week and, there's so many things I want to accomplish still. And one of my biggest accomplishments will be definitely taking a good inventory of who I am, what I've done up until this point, and what I aspire to do, and how meaningful and impactful that is. It's necessary to see yourself in the work that you do, in the person that you are, and how you show up in life. Like, all of these things are so necessary to recognize, for better or for worse. Okay? For better or for worse, it is super important to be mindful of who you are as an individual and how that takes up space in the world. All right. So just something to think about. Write out your list. Write out your list. Be specific. Take your time. Be realistic. Okay. And be very honest. More than anything, be so damn honest. it's worth it, and you will definitely discover more about yourself. You know, writing things out is always, it points back to clues. It gives you clues in terms of who you are every single time. You just got to be willing to sit there and take your time. Okay. So with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Hope you guys take care of yourselves. Hope you guys take care of each other. If you want to sign up for online coaching, one-on-one mental health coaching with myself, the link is in the description of this episode. And I'm accepting new clients and would love to work with you if you are willing to do the work. I say that all the time. The only way I can work is if the other person on the opposite end is working with me. Okay? That is important. That is necessary. Actually, it's imperative. Okay? So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take flight.